So for this video, I'm going to be discussing my January TBR, all of the books that I plan and hope to get to in the month of January. That's pretty much what I'm going to be doing here. Yeah, that's about it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I believe I have 10 books here to read in the month of January. Most of these books, I'm definitely going to read because they're priorities for various reasons, which I'll go over. I think one of them I don't have to get to, but if I could, that would be great. But anyway, the first book that I'll mention here, this is kind of all out of order. Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh. This is our Thrill, Chill, or Kill book club pick for the month of January. I'm very excited for this one. It's got kind of Alfred Hitchcock vibes. If you've ever heard of Strangers on a Train, that's kind of that idea, but a more modern take, and it's for women. I think the premise is these two women have a man in their life that's kind of bad, and maybe they possibly want to kill him and try to get away with it, that kind of deal. This story has definitely been told before, but I'm hoping that there's going to be kind of a new twist on it or what have you. But yeah, I'm very excited for this Thrill, Chill, or Kill book club pick. We're also going to be continuing with the Stephen King book club for January, and our pick for that is Different Seasons, one of my all-time favorite Stephen King books. I believe my third favorite, just after The Dead Zone and Misery. And this is by far my favorite collection of his. This is a novella collection, and very famous for having 3 of these novellas turned into movies. Obviously, you've got Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption, got turned into The Shawshank Redemption. One of the best stories and movies ever made. You've got Apt Pupil, which in my opinion is one of the more underrated ones. The movie I haven't seen in quite a while, but I've reread this novella a ton. One of my favorites. You've got The Body, which famously got turned into Stand By Me. Both very good as a novella and a movie. And then you've got quite possibly my favorite Stephen King novella of all time, super underrated, called The Breathing Method. A lot of people have probably at least heard of the other 3 novellas. This one's kind of the dark horse in Stephen King's catalog. One of my absolute favorite novellas ever written. So yeah, very excited to reread this classic Stephen King collection, and I hope y'all will join me and Ian from Ian the Reader. We're co-hosting this, and this is our first pick for 2025. So me and my lovely wife, Stacy, we're also going to be doing kind of a fantasy read-along over on the Bookish Drummer Discord. And also a lot of these books that I'm talking about are going to have channels on the Bookish Drummer Discord so we can chat about them. We're going to be doing one fantasy book a month all year long. And the first 3 fantasy books that we're going to do are the first 3 books in the Gentleman Bastard series. So in January, we're going to be reading The Lives of Locke Lamora, one of my all-time favorite books and series. And it's going to be fun for me because Stacy, she's read the first book twice, but she hasn't continued with the series. So I'm very anxious to get her opinions on book 2 and 3, which we're going to be doing in February and March. But the first book has always been my favorite, even though the other books are still 5 stars. The first book just has a special place in my heart. Hopefully y'all will join us either for a reread or as a first time. But yeah, this is just one of my all-time favorite fantasy books and just one of my favorite books in general. So we're going to be reading that in January. I've also got 2 Patreon books to read in January, and I'll discuss why that is. But the first one is going to be Hollywood Park, and this is a book that Patrick, or Hors de Lore, wants me to read. This is a music non-fiction book, and he specifically said that the audiobook was really good because, memoirs are often narrated by the person who wrote them, the person that the book is about, and that's probably the best way to go about reading memoirs, is to listen to the actual author's telling of the story. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I really don't know who Michael Juliet is. He's some kind of music person, but Patrick really likes the audiobook, so I'm definitely going to be checking that out. That's his pick for January. And also, Patrick Hors de Lore, speaking of him, he is God tier on my Patreon, which means that he gets more wheel spins on the wheel spin, but he also gets an additional 2 books for me to read in 2025. And the first of those books that he wants me to check out is Micro by Michael Crichton. And this one sounds really good. I've read a ton of Michael Crichton books. I may have read this one in the past, but I don't really remember too much about it, but it just has a really cool premise. It sounds like it's going to be a bunch of people getting shrunk down and having to deal with those implications. I'm sure it's Michael Crichton, so it's going to be a fun, twisty thriller. So definitely going to be looking forward to checking out Micro by Michael Crichton. Also, every month, speaking of the Bookish Drummer Discord, I do kind of a random number generator game where I have everybody on the Discord guess a number between 1 and 100, and whoever is the closest gets to pick a book for me to read the following month. And I can't remember who the winner was. I'm going to have to look it up and post it right here. But the book that they picked was Unmissing by Mika Kent. And this one, I believe, is supposed to be a pretty good either horror or thriller book. I don't actually remember too much about it, but it looks like it's a short read. It looks like it's pretty good, and it's got a lot of ratings and pretty high ratings. So, yeah, it sounds like a pretty good option. But yeah, with the title like Unmissing, probably someone went missing and maybe they're back. I don't know, but I'm going to check it out. I kind of like to go into thrillers not knowing too much anyway, so it should be a lot of fun. Also, speaking of the Bookish Drummer Discord, we did a fun little Christmas-themed thing on there. I did the 12 books, or the 12 days of Bookmas, where every day I posted some sort of event that the people on the Discord had to take place in. And if you took place in all 12 events, your name got put on a wheel spin, and whoever won the wheel spin got to pick a book for me to read in January. And this is the result of that. So let's see who gets to pick a book for me to read in January. There's sound. There. Oh my God. Ian! Ian! And you might be wondering, like, why are you freaking out about Ian winning? Like, you have similar taste in books. Well, he was kind of, well, it turns out jokingly, but I wasn't quite sure. He was threatening to pick War and Peace for me to read in January, so I was like, oh God, is he actually going to do that? But no, he actually picked Small Mercies by Dennis Lehane, and this is one of his all-time favorite authors and one of the best books that he read in 2024, so I'm definitely very excited to check this out. And I'm very thankful that he didn't pick War and Peace. So like I said, me and Stacy are going to be doing kind of one fantasy buddy read a month. And probably on my own, I'm going to be trying to catch up on some fantasy series that I didn't finish the last couple of years. So I'm going to be doing an additional fantasy book a month. It's going to be maybe like an unofficial buddy read on the Bookish Drummer Discord. But one series that I'm really interested in finishing this year, in the first half of the year, is War for the Rose Throne. So I'm going to be rereading Priest of Bones by Peter McLean in January, and then hopefully continuing that quartet and finishing that up in April, the 4 books. And because I really liked this first book. I gave it 4.5 stars, and then I planned on picking up the rest of the books. But at this point, I've just forgotten too much, so I need to refresh my mind with the first book in January, and then, you know, February, read book 2, March, read book 3, and April, read book 4, and kind of wrap that series up. Hopefully it turns out to be a new favorite because I really enjoyed book 1. I'm probably going to enjoy it even more on a reread. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. And I haven't posted this video yet, but another one of my reading goals for 2025, I have a bunch, but one of the main ones is to tackle all of the books that are on my physical shelf. And specifically, I'm going to be targeting books that I know Stacy, my wife, doesn't want to read, so that we have a higher probability of maybe unhauling those books. So every month I'm going to be doing at least one, if not 2 or 3, like random number generators and just picking a random book for me to read. And the one that I got for January is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. Now I've read one of her books, I think The Good Daughter is pretty good, although it was a little lengthy for a thriller. And I had maybe a couple problems with it, but overall it was a fun time. Well, maybe not fun because it went places, but it was pretty good. This one I've heard is really dark and really gruesome, and even from people that love dark and gruesome books, like Brian always recommends me like these crazy twisty horror books, and even he was like, man, this book was brutal. So I don't know what I have in store for me, but I'm going to try to get to this one. If I don't, it's not the end of the world, but I'd love to be able to get to this in January. And then the next book I'm actually reading at the very tail end of December, but I probably won't have enough time to finish it, and that would be the sequel to In the Hills Above the Gristmill by Calvin Ellis, book 2, In the Grave Where the Bones Are Still Wet, which is one of the craziest book titles I've ever heard of. And book 1, I just reread it. That's going to be the last book that the last book that I finish in 2024. Very fun debut kind of thriller horror book. Like it's less horror, more it's kind of a mixture of both, but I kind of wanted book 1 to be more horror, and that's kind of the main reason why it gets 4 stars. But I've heard a lot of people, including Ian, say that book 2 is like definitely horror, and there's some really messed up stuff in this book. So I'm very excited for that. And so yeah, book 2 I'm very excited about. I'm probably going to be able to read most of it in 2024 because I've already started it, and I've got, I'm filming this on the 29th, so I have a few days to read it, but I'm probably going to end up finishing it like probably January 2nd or whatever. So it'll be the first book that I finish in 2025. So yeah, I'm very excited for that, and I'm very excited for all of these books. All right, so those are all of the books that I'm planning on picking up in the month of January. And if I have time, I could pick up more potentially. January is kind of a down month for the post office because it's after Christmas and people have bought all their stuff and have sent out all the Christmas cards and whatnot. So I might have more time to read, but we'll see. So the 10 books, I'll kind of just recap here. Kill for Me, Kill for You is our Thrill, Chill, or Kill book club pick. Different Seasons is our Stephen King book club pick. Me and Stacy's fantasy thing we're doing, The Lies of Locke Lamora, the first book. 2 Patreon picks, Hollywood Park and Micro, and the random number generator game. I can't remember who the person was, but they picked Unmissing by Minka Kent. And then the 12 Days of Bookmas winner was Ian, and he picked Small Mercies by Dennis Lehane. And then I want to reread Priest of Bones and hopefully pick up on that series again. If I have time, I can read Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, and then probably the first book I'm going to finish in January, In the Grave Where the Bones Are Still Wet. So yeah, that's my plan, at least for January, and then if I pick up more, we'll see. Hopefully I can kind of end my DNF streak that I've been having, because in November and December, I was just DNFing everything. Because I was just picking up random books, because I had a lot of time to mood read, and it had varying results. So, but hopefully these 10 books, I don't think I'm going to DNF any of these, but maybe if I finish these books and I have time to read more stuff, we'll see. But I've been, even though like DNFing a book kind of sucks, it's also liberating because I know that I'm not going to be having like a bunch of 2-star reads, which is probably what they would end up being if I finished them. So that's good at least. But yeah, hopefully all of these books, well, I know I'm going to enjoy some of these books because they're rereads. But yeah, hopefully I enjoy all of them. We'll see. Definitely let me know which of these books that you're the most excited for me to read. And also let me know what you're reading in the month of January. Comment all of those down below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And if you are subscribed, stay subscribed for more content. And I've got the Bookish Drummer Discord where, like I've mentioned, a ton of these books are going to have channels open for discussion. I've also got my Patreon page, like I mentioned. You can support me there for as little as $1 a month and be able to potentially pick a book for me to read in the following month. And I have my Amazon wish list down below. Y'all don't need to buy me anything. I have too many books, but it's down there if you want to peruse. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.